So with everybody, we'll kind of finish this little section up here, just 2 or 3 minutes here to finish up. Um, Prohibition ends up being kind of a failure in the 20s. It was called a great experiment by the Public Wickersham Commission. After 1925, the public support for prohibition started going down because of all the violence, all the drugs that came up, and all of those kind of things. And basically, we said, hey, this thing, it didn't work too well. And in 1932, the 21st Amendment is passed, which then repeals prohibition, and the whole country starts to drink again legally. And after that, we see the big gangs, the big organized crime start losing power. They go into other things, but that's kind of a big bit of the prohibition. Last thing I want to touch on just for a couple minutes here is the idea of fundamentalism. And fundamentalism was a big part of the 1920s. It was basically a belief, a very strict, literal interpretation of the Bible. It's a big part of the Christian areas of the country, and it was a essential belief that the Bible said it, it literally has to be true. Things like the earth stood still, or the sun stood still, or those kind of things that happen. And especially one man, William Jennings Bryan, who was a big supporter of this, he would run for president before, the populist, wanted to see evolution, the teaching of evolution, the idea from Charles Darwin, banned from schools. Darwin, had the idea of evolution, and people had taken saying that, maybe, people evolved from apes and monkeys and those kind of things. There's a case in Tennessee, a young dude here named John Scopes. He's a very young science teacher in Tennessee, and basically he, at the behest of the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, decided to teach evolution in his class at Dayton, Tennessee. And so here we have John Scopes. Here we have the two lawyers in here. So you have a guy named Clarence Darrow, a very famous lawyer at the time, very popular lawyer who's going to help support Scopes. You have William Jennings Bryan, who's going to support the idea of fundamentalism. And it basically ends up dividing the town and dividing the world here. You see, the Tennessee headquarters for anti-evolution, the conflict held in the high school, the idea that, of what, of what should be taught in our schools. At this time in Tennessee, it was not legal to teach the idea of evolution in a public high school. In a public high school, you had to be teaching that the world was created, by God and that kind of stuff in 7 days. And there was no choice what you believed. That's what you were taught in high school. Every single person, no matter what your religion was, had to say that. Other people on the other side said, Darwin's right, and that it was that scientific idea. Even saw kind of cartoons made up. They're pretty funny here. You have the idea of evolution, and the idea of the monkey being a big symbol of evolution, kind of balancing the ground between Tennessee. You kind of saw the idea of, somebody who claims that these darn fools of mine and show me the guy, all this kind of stuff about people fighting literally over all the things that are happening in the country at this time. It basically became this huge public affair. People were out there watching this trial happening. They actually reenacted the trial a couple years ago. And in the end, people really thought this whole trial, this whole argument about, what should be taught in schools about where we come from, it was a big public waste of time. In the end, people thought some fundamentalists were fools, and eventually the case got overturned by the Supreme Court. So we see a lot of things happen in the 20s here. Make sure your notes are done for Tuesday. We'll be talking in class, spending a day on prohibition, spending a day on the Scopes Monkey trial as well, and talk a little bit about women in the 20s as well as we go then forward from there to look at the Harlem Renaissance after that. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you later.